Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture on how to get started on the Google Earth Engine Cloud API hosted by Google. This platform is available for research and educational purpose for free, and there's also a new commercial version for more commercial application. But in this video, we'll be discussing on the free version where you can apply for educational training purpose or research purpose, and then you can access a library of geospatial data, and this includes weather data and climate data, as you can see here. And it also, the Earth Engine data library also hosts this various Earth observation satellite data, including the Landsat satellite, Sentinel, MODIS, and some other high resolution imagery, and also some geospatial data set, including land cover data and terrain data or digital elevation model, and some crop data and other geospatial data such as nighttime light. And so these are only some of some examples of the data that are hosted by the Earth Engine data library. And actually, the Earth Engine data library hosts about petabytes of data, which is very large volume of data set, and you can call it like big Earth observation data. And so there are two utilities for the Earth Engine application. The first one is you can access satellite data, satellite plus geospatial data, freely on the platform. And the second thing is that you can you can analyze the data on the cloud without actually downloading the image, downloading the data on your local computer. You can actually run your algorithm or script or tool on Google machine. Google has on this cloud platform, Google has tens of thousands of computer running in parallel, so you can use all of that computing power to run your analysis without downloading even a single satellite image. That's unprecedented, right? In a traditional remote sensing application, you have to download a Landsat, for example, scene in the old school application, and you have to download the image, and you have to pre-process it on your local machine. There is a requirement for processing a CPU, consuming a lot of CPU, and then B, it consumes storage, right? Your data storage. Now with Google Earth Engine, you don't need to do that. The power of that is you can run this analysis, large scale geospatial or big data analysis on your browser, on your laptop, on your iPad, or even cell phone. If you have internet on a cell phone, you can simply run a Google your application on the Google Earth Engine API, and this is a game changer. Okay, and so the as I mentioned earlier, the main functionality of the Earth Engine is a library of data set, mostly satellite data, but also other geospatial data. And there are built-in Earth Engine algorithms that you can use to apply to your analysis, geospatial analysis. And so you can apply, you can use this tool for various applications to solve complex environmental problems that need big data and big data analysis as well. This includes, agriculture application, water resource, public health, and land use, land cover change, and what have you. The list goes on. So if I give you a brief overview of Earth Engine, this much, and let's just go to the main website. So the main website has the overview, which we have already discussed, and the main one is the code editor. This is the main code editor, the API. So API is application programming interface. So this is the Google Earth Engine JavaScript code editor API. Okay, so you can write your program here, and you can visualize your output and monitor your progress, and visualize charts and maps and things like bugging, code bugging, output, and things like that on the console here on the right side. And so the next thing is, let's just look at the Earth Engine API guideline. So how can we run Earth Engine, right? So you have the JavaScript API, which is mainly this code editor API, which is actually powerful, and you don't have to install anything, and there's a lot of documentation, very rich documentation, and you can also run your analysis on the Python API. So the Google Earth Engine also comes with a Python API you can run on Google Colab mostly, and also you can run the Earth Engine API on the Python version on a Jupyter notebook locally as well. Mostly the Colab version, you don't have to install most of the package, so it's pretty handy, right? So whether you're using a JavaScript or a Python API, so you can apply the Earth Engine. You can access all this library of data from Earth Engine, and also these analytic tools, right? Okay, so let's get started with the code editor here. So typically this is the code editor, okay? So the Earth Engine code editor API, and this is where you write your program. This is in a JavaScript, and I mean, you don't have to be really know a hardcore JavaScript programming. Most of the documentation is well written on Earth Engine, so you can apply some examples, and tweak the examples and apply it into your application. And there is a very, very helpful documentation in terms of the the Earth Engine API, especially the JavaScript API. And you can scroll through most of this documentation. You can get what you need, and then most of the documentation is well written and very well organized. And if you look at, for example, here, you can get started here, and some advanced applications like object and methods. These are some advanced applications which we'll cover in future lectures, and some machine learning and whatnot. So there's a lot of example, and you can study all of this by yourself, and become advanced Earth Engine user or expert by yourself. There's a lot of documentation in that. Okay, so let's get started here. And so mainly, as I mentioned, so the left part has a script where you can write, you can create a file or just a script, and then save it here. And there's also documentation here. So if you look at the Earth Engine documentation, you have algorithms, array, a whole bunch of Earth Engine built-in algorithms. Like, for example, if you want to do some image exporting and things like that, you can just go to export here, for example, export image, and you can click some of this. And for example, if you want to export image to your drive, you can click this one, export to drive, image to drive. And so this will give you documentation in terms of that built-in Earth Engine function, right? And you can get more detail. And then one thing that you have to note is that some of these red flagged functions, built-in functions, are not anymore existing, so they're depreciated, so you don't have to use that anymore. So that's one information. And you can go like for example, in terms of classifier, EE classifier. So all of these are Earth Engine built-in models or classifiers. And for example, if you go here, smile random forest, you can get some information how the random forest, the Earth Engine random forest model works, right? And so this is very informative and self-explanatory. So you can use all of this documentation, very well written and documented, as you dig deeper into the Earth Engine platform. And the other thing is, to the assets, right? So you can upload your own data set so that you can access it here on the API. And so as I mentioned here, this is the code API where you write your code, and this is the console, and this is the map canvas where you can visualize your result. You can change it to a satellite background, and also to Google Maps background. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing in any programming is just to write a hello world, right? So let's print our first program here. I'll just print a hello world. Hello world, and I need to close it in a bracket. So usually on the JavaScript API, if you don't close your statement by a semicolon, it will just show you this icon. It still works without even the semicolon, but just to make sure you don't have that error message, I'll close this, I'll close it with the semicolon. Okay, so this is your first program on the JavaScript Earth Engine Code Editor API, and to execute this code, what you click is just run, right? So when so there's nothing here, and when I click run, I should be able to see something on the console here, right? Let's click execute run. Perfect. So yeah, so you can see here the hello world message is printed. So I tested that my first JavaScript on the code editor, the Earth Engine code editor, works. And so that's how it works. There are a couple of things here. So the inspector is just, every time you navigate to the map canvas and just click on a point, it will give you the latitude, longitude, and then the zoom level and the scale. So the zoom level changes actually, like, the more you zoom out, the the lesser the number is, the more you zoom in, the number changes, right? Zoom level on. And so if you want to access the lat long information for any given place here, you can get that information by looking at the inspector. And then the task is, if you run some like exporting function or things like that, so it will show up here on the task, and then you run that, and then it will export your data. Okay. So so let's just do some bit of coding here, and so we have started. We have done our first hello world script, and let's just go to the the main Earth Engine API platform. So let's get started here. Okay, just let's look at some examples here. And so one thing you have to note is that the Earth Engine has some built-in terminology. So if you want to work with Earth Engine, you have to be familiar with some of this things. I mean, image and image collection, right? So image is for a single image, whereas image collection is the term that the Earth Engine term to refer to a collection of images or a group of image. For example, if you have 4 or 5 Landsat image or scenes, you would call them as image collection. And another one is that's for more raster analysis or just raster representation. For vector representation here, you have, for example, here feature is just to say like a polygon, right? Which has a single, a single entity. And if you have multiple polygons, you might say feature collection here. So a collection of a group of, vector data or, polygons. And geometry here just to refer to a polygon with only coordinate information and whatnot. And there are some advanced features such as reducer, array, and join features we'll be discussing in other lectures. But these are some data structures in Earth Engine which is useful to know. And arrays, you might have know there are another data representation. You might have used that in other programming language, so you also have that data structure in Earth Engine. And other things are more like specialized applications such as machine learning or supervised classification, algorithms, some specialized algorithms such as the simple cloud masking algorithm built in on Earth Engine, and other applications. So it's good to get used to the data structure on Earth Engine, slightly different from the existing GIS or remote sensing terminology, but once you get used to them, they're fairly straightforward. Okay, so we have already discussed the code editor here, and let's just skip that. So yeah, we have written our first hello world, and then the next thing is actually let's import. So there are some good examples on the Earth Engine API documentation, so you can copy some of these codes and then tweak them to your application, right? So the next thing is, all right, I'll just copy paste actually the second script that I need in this demo is printing a Landsat image. So if you look at this, there's some data structure here, how the Earth Engine stores data here, right? You have Landsat. You can think of this as your data folder structure in your in your machine or Windows or whatnot. So for example, in a window you might have a folder called Landsat, and then within that folder a subfolder of LC08, and it goes on like that. And then there's collection 1 and collection 2 folders, and then this is collection 1, and then tier 1 and tier 2, and finally that image ID, specific image ID. You don't have to memorize this. I'll show you later how you can access all of this, but just this is to give you a perspective in terms of the data structure, how Earth Engine stores data in an image collection or stores an image. So if I execute this, I can execute that, and you have now printed the image, right? What do we have here? Let's look at that. So the ID is exactly matching this, right? So there's image ID, It's exactly matching this, right? And the type is image, and the other thing is you have bands, right? So what are these bands? So these are the Landsat 8 bands, right? Very much detailed. So you have the the OLI bands and band 1 to 9, and also the thermal bands, band 10 and band 11, and also there's a quality assurance or a QA band. Okay, and there's also other metadata information here. You can get that, all of that, cloud contamination, elevation source and whatnot. A whole host of metadata information. You might need to access some of this, and some of it not necessarily in this tutorial. So this is just to give you a perspective how you can print an image on Earth Engine without even downloading the data. You can simply access all of this information on the browser, right? With the code editor API. Okay, so the next thing is, so we didn't visualize anything yet, right? So we just pulled in the data and printed the metadata, right? So the next thing is, let's actually visualize that. So we can copy this whole script that's available on the Earth Engine documentation and just execute that. And so one of the things that you can have is, I want to show you here is so if you click control space, you can actually see whatever algorithm you have in that in that collection, right? For example, if I type map, you will put all of the functions that are existing on the Earth Engine in the Earth Engine built-in algorithms. You will put all of that. So if you look at this, for example, Earth Engine collection map, right? And there's another one for dictionary map and then whatnot. So what I'm looking here is at so if I type map add and then type control enter, it will bring all of this Earth Engine built-in functions I can use, right? So here, in my case, I'm just using add layer, right? So anyway, just wanted to show you how you can use existing Earth Engine functions without even typing. That's pretty handy. And so we have this new script. What is it doing? So we have printed it here. Actually, we're using this as a variable. So when you declare a variable, you can now use that variable later in your other analysis. In this case, in map center object and then image. So we're using exactly this image, right? But now, because we declared it as a variable, we will be using that later. Okay, so the first thing is just declare a variable, and then later, so map center object is just to adjust the zooming. As you can see here, this is a global view. So I mean the zoom can be anywhere. So once you adjust the zoom level, it will bring it to that specific data, right? And the last thing is to actually map.add layer will display that data, or in this case, this Landsat image here, the variable here you have created. You can pull it here and then you can display it. So when you execute this, what it does is just it will load this Landsat image that you have already looked at the metadata and then the band information and things like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute that. Let's just execute that. Okay, perfect. So what we have here is that, so it will also just create it as you know, a layer one, because we have not given it a name. It will just automatically create a layer here. So now what it did is just it adjusted the zoom level. So for example here, if I click it again, it will just adjust the zoom level here. It did two things. So this map center object adjusted the zoom level here to the image, and the other one is display the image. It will create an automatic that Landsat image we have seen. It will just add it here on the map canvas so that we can visualize it here. Okay, and as you can see here, this is just a dark object, right? Like, you know, it's not clear, you know, it's not nice to display it. I mean, we haven't done any visualization and things like that, so it's pretty you know, opaque, and it's not visible. It's not handy to visualize this, right? So we can do a little, you know, a little advanced color you know, symbolization and things like that, a little more down here. So what we can do here is, instead of you know, just simply displaying that, we can copy this visualization parameter and add it here. Instead of you know, the display image, let me just change this here. So instead of just simply display the image, we have created a visualization parameter. What we are doing here is that we provide the different bands. Instead of displaying everything, we have different bands, right? For Landsat band 5, you know, it's RGB, right? A red, green, blue color combination for a true color composite here. And then here in this example, we're doing a false color composite. So band 5, band 4, band 3. And then we also define the minimum and maximum values. And after that, instead of just simply mapping the image, we import this or we pass that visualization coloring parameter here, and then we just, you know, write the name of the layer as it shows here so that we can remember what it is. And then when we execute that, it will just show us in a false color composite. Okay, let's execute that. Excellent. Now it's much better, right? So because it's a false color composite, more like greener area, vegetation cover is red, and, you know, as you can see, it's much clearer. This is, you know, the San Francisco Bay Area, and this is San Francisco, and this is Oakland, and so, and then this is you know, Silicon Valley, where Google, Facebook, and all other, you know, the big Silicon Valley companies are. So this is just an example of showing the Bay Area using a satellite data, a Landsat satellite. What we have done is just imported the data, created some visualization, you know, color, false color composite, and be able to visualize that. If you zoom in, actually here, you can see, you know, the Bay Bridge here, and which is pretty clear compared to you know, just the default visualization of the image. So that's how you you know, get started, you know, with the code editor, the Earth Engine code editor API. This is just a simple example to show you you know, how you can get started with Earth Engine on the cloud. And this is pretty powerful. You don't have to install software, you know, download the data. You can run this even on your cell phone, on your mobile, as far as you have internet, you know, on a browser. you can simply run that and visualize that. If you need the data later, you can do some exporting and things like that. We can deal. I can show you that in future lectures. But for this, get started, Earth Engine get started demo. So that's how you can get started with Earth Engine. Simply loading a Landsat data and visualizing it just to get started.